We are back for some more Trickeration with Mr. Magic. I'm Adam Munsterteiger, the publisher of BuffStampede.com on the 24/7 Sports Network. Joined again by Darian Hagan. Darian, back in the height of COVID, we did a feature on BuffStampede.com, the Mount Rushmore of CU football, and you were one of those four figures that won. Did you ever see the graphic that we put together for that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, I'm gonna have to show that to you. My wife put it together. It's pretty awesome. Your head is chiseled into what looks to be Mount Rushmore, so it's a cool deal there. But
that's awesome.
Today, I wanted to spend a little time talking with you about just the way that preseason camp has evolved over the years. Obviously, it looks different than it did back when you were a player at CU. But before we jump into that, Darian, I know that you recently had a chance to connect with Devon Thornton, a former Buff tight end, and I was curious how he's doing these days. I'm sure there's some CU fans out there that are anxious for an update on him.
He's doing really well. He's at Vista Peak High School. He has 85 players on his team, which is a lot for a high school team. And those guys they love being around him. He's running this program like a college program. He's there full time. He's a teacher. As a high school player to have your coach in the building is rare. For him to be in the building, he's able to touch his guys on a daily basis. First thing in the morning when they get to school, the first person they see is Coach Thornton. That's big. That's huge for those kids.
Yeah, and he's somebody that it seems like he takes a lot of pride in kind of giving back to folks. Is that one of the best things about being a coach, as long as you've been a coach, that you've been able to kind of see these people really blossom as human beings and then get into a leadership role and really thrive in that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because as a coach, you want to see that your players succeed, on the field. But if they don't make that jump to the NFL or to the CFL, you want to see them doing well, getting back to the community. And Devon is, he's getting back to the community. He's doing a really, really good job, man. I'm proud of him. He's the guy that he went through some adversities here, but he's overcome those things, and he has no ill will toward anybody. He just wants to give back to the kids, just like he was given the opportunity here at CU. And those kids, when they see him, first thing they do is they just start smiling, man. It brightens their day when they see him. He even asked me the other day, would I be willing to come coach the running backs for him? So I said I'll think about it. But that drive is too long, man.
Well, he's getting Vista Peak ready for the 2023 season, and the Buffaloes are getting ready for the 2023 season. I'm curious, the biggest changes you see in just the way that preseason camp looks now compared to what it looked like when you were a player.
Well, I think it's totally different. When we played, it wasn't no acclimation period. You went straight in the pads and you got after it twice a day. We were in meetings a lot. It was 30 days of getting after it. Now these guys, man, they practice once a day. They really don't hit. They have an acclimation period where 3 days, I think it's 3 to 5 days before you even put on full pads. So it's a little bit different. But I also understand, that, it's been injuries and kids, getting hurt and all that stuff. But I just think it was a different time when we played in today's ball. I think that the kids, when we played, we were a little bit different. We played tackle football in the streets. We played tackle football in the streets with our jeans on, getting holes in the knees. You remember back in the day they had what was the name of those tough skin jeans?
Yeah,
we had tough skin jeans, and it was just a different time. Now they look out more for these guys. They got Guardian caps on. They wear. I think they're looking out more for them where back when we played, it was more of a let them go battle. That's the difference. That's the main difference.
What would you guys do in the summer compared to now? Because it's pretty much a full-time job for these guys throughout summer. So maybe they don't need the 2-a-days like you guys did back then. Were you guys in great shape going into camp?
Yes, we were. So for a guy like myself, I never had to stay here and go to summer school. I made sure that my grades and everything were I was on top of all that stuff because I had a kid when I was leaving high school. So, when I in the summer times, I wanted to be home and be around my kid. So I would always make sure my schoolwork was taken care of. I would go home and I would work out every day with my former high school teammates. And when when I came back, I was always in shape. And we had the rest of the team, not the rest of them, but I would say, over 50% of the team, they stayed here and they worked out twice every day with Jeff Madden, who was our strength coach, and those, but when we reported, it wasn't we're gonna get in here, we're gonna have acclimation, and we're gonna just, slowly get you going. We came in and we had to test. We had to run a mile timed. You had to have a certain time. If you didn't make that, you couldn't practice until you made that time. It was totally totally different. But now these kids here, they're here year round. They're doing summer school. They're doing 4 days a week workouts and stuff like that. These guys don't have the opportunity not to stay in shape. They're doing something all the time.
Do you remember where you guys had to run that mile to test out early in camp?
Yes, we ran it at Pottsville.
Okay.
Right at the track over there.
Do you remember what was the cutoff? Was it different for every position?
Yes, every position was different. I forget the times, but obviously the D line, the O line had a longer time than what we had. But I couldn't recall that. So we had the O line, D line, you had the skill, and the tight ends they had to run with the O line. And then the skill, we all ran together. DBs, receivers, fullbacks, running backs, quarterbacks. We all ran together. But it was sort of like a competition because we wanted to make sure when we got back, I wanted to be in better shape than CJ. CJ wanted to be in better shape than me. The 3 years that CJ and I played together, he never accomplished that feat.
Would he agree with that assessment?
Yes, he would. If he didn't agree with it, he would be telling the absolute story.
I love it. What other stories do you have when you think back into the memory bank of your brain in terms of what preseason camp was like during your time at CU?
We never had opportunity to. Nowadays, you see these guys. They have periods just like we have periods. Periods 1 through 14. We had the same thing, but now these guys they have breaks in between. We didn't have any breaks. That was unheard of. When we hit the football field, we went 14 straight periods. 20-minute periods, and it was hitting every single period. Even special teams were hitting. Only on special teams, only people that you couldn't hit was obviously the kicker, and you couldn't hit the returner. But everybody else was full.
Every quarterback as well?
The quarterback, yes, we were full too. We were getting taken down to the ground. So when we played here, every position besides the DBs had to wear knee braces, even the receivers. So now here you see, I think the defensive line is optional. The O line has to wear them. Tight ends don't wear them. Yeah, I think quarterbacks have them on one knee. So it's totally different. It's totally different. We had to make sure we had our ankles taped. These guys here, they have to make sure they have their ankles taped, but some of them don't do it. And then most of the time, the coaches don't check for them. until they get hurt. And then once they get hurt, and then, you start harping on, Why didn't he get taped? Why didn't you check? You know, but as a coach, when I coached here, I made sure I went around the room and checked my guys, made sure they were taped before we even left for meetings. You know, that was the difference. They just, you know, everything seemed like it's optional, and you know, it's going to affect you after the fact instead of being proactive.
We've seen Coach Prime give really impassioned speeches in the team meeting room since he's been in Boulder. What was it like with Bill McCartney, and just some of what was his demeanor like throughout preseason camp?
Coach Mack had a quiet demeanor. He just really was a guy that wanted to observe. He wanted to see if, you know, each player knew their assignments, knew what they had to do, certain checks. He wanted to make sure everything was just flowing flawlessly. And he was in charge when he got really boisterous and really loud is when it was punt team, because he was in charge of the punt team. So he had a ruler, and on his ruler he had 2-inch splits. That's how close the front line had to be from each other. So he would take a ruler and he would throw it on the ground, and he would see how close you were to the next man. And if you were too close or you were too wide, he'd take that ruler and pop you on the calf. Nowadays you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, but he was real laid back. But I tell you what, when we had team meeting settings, it's like Coach Prime, he got us fired up, man. I've never been in a meeting with anybody other than him. I would say Coach Barnett was kind of similar, but Coach Mack was different. You know, I've been in a room with Mike Shanahan, but I've been in a room with a lot of famous, you know, head coaches, and nobody could touch Coach Mack. Coach Mack, man, he had a story. His story would always resonate for something personal in your life, or something personal on the football field. I remember being in the meeting room with him, and we were going to play the University of Missouri, and Missouri had this big offensive tackle. His name was Russ McCullough, and his nickname was the Bus. And Coach Mack said in the meeting, he goes, "Alfred and Canavas, you guys better strap it on." He said, "Because you guys are going against Russ the Bus. Russ the Bus, if you don't bring your A game, he'll put you on his back and he'll drop you off at the mall." So he would challenge each kid, each person, man, and he would bring the best out of you every day. He was awesome.
When you transitioned to being a coach and they did away with two-a-days, how did you try to kind of bridge, you know, getting a team ready to be physical for that season opener without having that extra practice time? Or was there a thought that, okay, missed tackles are just going to be part of, obviously you're on the offensive end, but like when you talk to the defensive coaches, was there a feeling that maybe missed tackles were just going to become more prevalent in college football and there was really no way around that?
Yeah, we talked about that. And we talked about, you know, there's no way around it. What we had to do to combat that was we had to make sure that we came together to do certain drills. We had to be do more technique work to be efficient. You know, so we would instead of being, you know, just totally individual with just the running backs and myself, you know, I would go up against the linebackers every day. And then the linebackers and we would work on tackling, we would work on ball security. They would try to strip the ball from us. We would work on routes, and then we would work on open field tackling. And but only thing we didn't take them to the ground. So they would tap off on us. And I think that made us aware of our surroundings and made us aware of what was going on. And then once on game day, I think that, you know, the guys were just ready to unleash. And on game day, guys just had fun, you know, and just you know, release the hounds, so to speak.
I'm sure when you were a player at CU, you had a pretty good feeling during preseason camp that you were going to have competitive football teams out there in the fall. When you were a coach at CU, did you have a pretty good gauge for kind of how things were going to come together when the season kicked off? Or was it kind of hard to tell sometimes in the preseason just exactly how good this group is that you're trying to mold?
It's kind of hard to tell what's going on, what's going to happen, how we're going to gel. Um, but as a group, I made sure that the running backs were always well taught, knew their assignments. They were going to be physical runners. They were going to not put the ball on the ground. So I took pride in that. But also, I think you can look to our 2016 team. Our 2016 team, we were stacked at the defensive line. We were stacked at linebackers. We were stacked in the secondary. On offense, we were pretty good on the offensive line. We had two really good quarterbacks, I thought, in Cepho and Steven. We had four excellent wide receivers with capable backups. We had really good running back, Philip Lindsay, and his backup, Michael Atkins. And then when Michaels got hurt, Kyle Evans, his development. And we knew going into the summer that we would have a chance just because our offensive defensive lines were going to be really, really good. They're going to be really good and be hard to handle. So we knew that we had a chance if we could come together in jail, and that's just what happened. And then last season, you could kind of tell that we weren't going to be very good because we were decimated by injuries, and we were forced to play players that wasn't ready to play. They were guys that wasn't really developed, that shouldn't have been out there, but that was the hand we was dealt with, and we tried to deal with it as best we could, but you knew that it was going to be a long season.
One of the guys that you had to kind of rush into action last year, Anthony Hankerson, has done a great job and made a strong impression with all the new coaches and is in the mix to be one of the catalysts on offense this year. How fun has it been to see him take that adversity head on and really thrive?
I tell you what, that guy is a tough kid. He's a tough-minded kid. His mom and dad are two great parents. They molded a guy to understand that anything you want, you got to work hard for it. I used to always tell all the running backs, to whom much is given, much is required. And Anthony took great pleasure and pride in that statement. He's tough nosed. He's the guy that you're not gonna scare him away. He's gonna give you everything he has. And I'm just proud of the guy. He comes by my office and we'll sit there and we'll talk, or I'll see him in the hallway and I'll tell him, I say, hey, you better not be sitting on the bench. And he'd be like, Coach, I ain't gonna be sitting on the bench. I tell you this. So I like to ruffle his feathers a little bit, just to bring out the steam out his ears and make sure that he understands that, I may not be coaching, but I'm still going to be a motivating force for you.
Awesome. Well, hey, Coach, I think that's all our time for this week's episode, but it was great catching up with you, kind of talking about some of the differences and how preseason camps evolved. I got to get you back on here soon. We got to talk about the move back to the Big 12, and I want to get your reaction to all of that. Thanks again for taking the time out. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for having me, man. I can't wait to talk about the Big 12. And, it's a home going for us.
Yep, definitely. All right. Yeah. And thanks to everybody out there for tuning in.